Star Wars 7x7, episode 2097. I've never really been at a loss for what to say on a podcast, but today's episode seems to have put me in that position, and I will explain with words, as it turns out. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this daily dose of Star Wars joy. This is a little bit of a heavier one, if you will, because this is not the first episode that I've done or that I will have done or will do, whichever tense you want to take this with, related to the coronavirus, to the COVID-19 pandemic. I guess a good place to start would be to say that I feel like I have the luxury of having the conversation that we're about to have because I have not been affected health-wise by the coronavirus pandemic. Neither has any of my family or friends, and I don't know, at least I don't yet know, anyone personally who has contracted the virus. And so yeah, there's a luxury in being in that place and being able to think of some of the things that I've been thinking about over the past week or so. And, if it were the case that we were dealing with somebody, close to us who was in that condition, yeah, then this sort of goes out the window. But I've been very angry. Like, anger is an emotion that I've experienced a lot over the past couple of weeks about what's been going on in the United States and around the world with this pandemic, and just facing the idea that it's so much out of our control. And I've been thinking about Yoda's line in The Phantom Menace: fear is the path to the dark side, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And I'm at the anger place, so it's not too far back to trace it to fear. And it really is about the lack of control, about the fact that, there's nothing to control about this virus, this social distancing thing that, we're all doing. Well, that's all well and good, but will it actually work? I certainly hope so. And yet, there are people who think that social distancing is a ridiculous notion and are not doing it at all. And boy, oh boy, doesn't that put them at risk, to say nothing of everybody that they're around, and then by extension, everybody who's in contact with those people, and who knows how that dice rolls, or how those dice roll, I guess I should say properly. That would be correct grammar. So in order to get my thoughts in order for this particular episode, I did something that I haven't done very often in the last couple of years, which is actually write it straight out, like script the darn thing in advance of actually doing the episode. But it turned out that I apparently had a lot to say and a lot to throw into the crock pot on the subject, and suddenly I'm at around 1,200 words on this post, and I'm like, there's no way this is going to be a podcast episode where I read this thing straight out and say, this is what's on my mind. But essentially what it comes down to is that as I've been thinking about my own anger, and that what it really is fear, because as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, there are only two emotions, love and fear, or more accurately, she says it's love or fear, because you can't feel both at the same time. So I've been thinking about that fear, and the fear of mortality, the fear for my life and my friends and loved ones' lives, and the lack of control that we all carry around as an illusion, right? I mean, heaven help us, but anybody could run us off the road because they're too busy texting while driving, right? Just to pick one example that happens all too commonly. So whether there's a virus, there's not a virus, this illusion of control over the circumstances of our lives is something that is being shown to us rather forcefully in this time. And that, at least, I think is part of where my anger is coming from. But I've been thinking about that also in terms of just, where we've seen anger in the Star Wars fandom and people's reactions to Star Wars stories, certainly in the Disney era, but even thinking back to my own initial reactions to some of the prequel movies, and, I wasn't the only one who had angry reactions, and I've since reconciled those and found my, particular elements of joy in the prequel movies now, and I'm much happier for it, to be sure. But the point is that I have had the luxury to be able to not have to, actively and aggressively worry about the ones I love in a particular fashion. And so it's given me the time and space and, again, luxury to think about anger and fear and the lack of control and whether there's anything to be learned about the reactions of some of us who were not happy about The Last Jedi, who were not happy about The Rise of Skywalker, or, any particular facet of Star Wars storytelling. And I'm saying those of us who, because Penn Jillette, the magician who's half of Penn and Teller, has been trying this thought experiment where he says, those of us who, with the notion that he's trying to consider all of us together. In other words, he's not trying to separate or divide in his thinking. He's not trying to create an other, which then, leads to some sort of demonization, for example, but to consider that, hey, we are all in this boat together. And certainly that's something that we're learning at our peril in this whole pandemic situation. I'm jumping around a lot compared to the much more organized post I've written for the website. So ultimately what I want to say is I hope you will consider heading over to sw7x7.com and checking out the blog post that I've written about this. This is episode 2097, so when you look for that episode in the feed on the website, you'll find it relatively easily, I believe. I'm jumping around a lot here, so yeah, this is just what's, coming out as I want to share this post with you. So if you head over to sw7x7.com and look for the post for episode 2097, I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know how you've been feeling these days and whether any of it resonates with you and whether you think that there's an application to how some of us have reacted to various Star Wars stories, or if you think I'm just, off my gourd, I'll listen to that too. And that, I think, is where we're going to leave things today. At least, Indy here, our studio manager who is behind me, if you're checking out the video, I think he wants me to get going here. So we'll call it a day. I hope that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy and strong, and I hope they stay that way. I wish the best for you and sanity in these troubled times, and may the curve be flattening for you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.